Hey guys, it's the Baron. Now, so far my OBS has broken multiple times. That's the recording software that I use, and it couldn't get my camera to connect correctly, so sorry if it took a while. However, I am quite excited for this video. This is the Lost City. Now, if you've been following the challenge, I'm only using native plants that belong to their worlds, and I'm glad that people are enjoying the new recording setup too. To start off, Lost City is one of my favorite worlds ever, and was definitely the best world so far in this run. I like the unique world structure in general. That and the history is just all over the place. There's like modern type artifacts, but there's also ancient type history with the buildings. And there's even zombies like excavators that could have just died yesterday. But more importantly, the plants. The plants are so exotic in a way that still makes them familiar to the original roster, while still adding a little bit of zest in order to fight the world with. That and sun tiles are broken. But more importantly, I've never had to be more aware of the world and its zombies than I have with this one. To add some clarity, this is the first world in the entire game where every single zombie introduced is meant to full counter the plant that you just unlocked. There's not one zombie in this world that isn't built to ruin you as fast as possible. And their gimmicks are so obviously made to make your new plant obsolete. The perfect example of this is the excavators and the parasol zombies, which both counter the classic setup that Lost City gives you in the beginning. Sometimes they'd come in together too, though the excavator walks faster than the parasol zombie, so it allows you to get the excavator out first. As of now, this made Lost City the hardest world that I've run through. But it wasn't like AIDS, like Frostbite Cave. I just mean it was hard as a world and how it's built. I think that Lost City's roster was very fair and generous, both with their sun prices and the amount of firepower that they give you. Like during the early stages. Our first unlock was Red Stinger, and they carried us through some of the earlier levels. However, Excavator was introduced nearly immediately. For much of the early game, I also used tutorial plants to help me out. Yes, I'm only using native plants, but this discludes tutorial plants, because the world would be impossible without tutorial plants, since I start with nothing in the beginning. However, the offensive plants are immediately replaced with whatever plant we get within the world. Continuing, thank you for the support for the channel, and subscribe. Moving on, some of the later levels of early game introduced us to the Aki. I think it's the Aki? The Aki? We get Aki as early as level 5. We don't exactly unlock him then, it's more towards 7, but we're introduced to the plant then. And immediately comes its counter, being the parasol zombie. Now, Red Stinger and Aki are a pretty dope duo to set up. They do great damage together and counter most things that the game has to give you. But Excavator and Parasols are also just a perfect duo. They counter both catapult plants and forward plants. We had a Protective Flowers level, and it was fine, as well as being able to micromanage the excavators. I find if you put a plant behind the shovel just right, then the excavator would actually try to eat the plant, which would stall it just long enough for an Aki to kill, because they have a surprising amount of HP. We were also given Lava Guavas in the early game. Lava Guava was introduced in Lost City, same with Toadstool, so they are legal for the challenge, even though we rarely use them. If you don't want to see those anymore though, then just comment below, or what you'd like to see next. And let me know if you're enjoying it. Day 9 was the first of many walls in our adventure. Beating the conveyor belt level was hard. Yes, conveyor belts count for the challenge rules, unless proven impossible. For day 9, I was trying to only use Endurians, since they were the only Lost City plant that we were given. However, I ended up losing a multitude of times, so I just had to cave in and use whatever plants I were given. And I tried a good many times with the Endurians. On that though, we do unlock the Endurians soon enough. Now, Endurian was our first wall plant. Even if it's not all that good, it did its job, especially against Excavator. Day 12 was a lot of countering Excavators. Day 12 was just taking advantage of all the sun tiles in general. Day 12...
Alright, I get it!
However, we still didn't kill the Gargantuars at the end. Good thing we have lawnmowers. Now, I know I'm jumping around, but we're also doing another world this video, and I just like appreciating the scene of it all anyways. Day 14 was just a key spam, since we were given literally nothing else. Then there was day 16. Day 16 had a really interesting, quirky end to the level, where it spawns 5 fucking Gargantuars. Now, the chat kept on telling me to use a cherry bomb at the end of the level. They told me to do it multiple times, but I was determined to win it fair and square. I recorded this on a weekday, and I'm only a loser on Saturdays. With an ungodly amount of attempts, I was able to finish up the level. You see, these special levels do a funny thing where you don't get lawnmowers. That's kind of what the Garg levels are all about. They make 110% sure that you are fucked. But on the other hand, the Garg levels give about exclusively Lost City plants. Day 21 was frog spam. I had no other choice, and we got Stalia. These levels also start introducing relic hunters to counter Endurian. And there's no real true counter to Stalia, so they just decide to give you the middle finger and introduce these Indiana Jones guys. Well, technically both of the guys are relic hunters, and they're both kind of Indiana Jones references. To put it simple, one of them used the light of God, and the other one swings halfway across the board. With just about the full roster here and ready to fight us, it is game on. This world only gets harder as you unlock more plants. Exhibit A, level 23. Watch as I get absolutely fucking rolled, and then rolled again. We get a little bit of a break, and then we get fucking rolled again. At this rate, it was like 1,000 degrees in the sunroom, and I decided to take a slight break. I returned and start spamming Gold Leaf, which I unlocked recently, and redid level 27. I got a Honda ad, and some more fun gimmick levels. I always loved the trap tiles. There's something about the boulder rolling across the screen that was so cool when I was a kid. However, I'm soon to miss those on round 29, when 2 more guards decide to wipe their ass with it. After that, the world's pretty much finished up, and I no longer miss the trap tiles, because Lost City Zomboss loves spamming them. I beat Zomboss with only Lost City plants, which I wasn't able to do with Frostbite Caves. Fuck Frostbite Caves, man. Now, my opinion on Lost City, the soundtrack is amazing. I have it going on in the background if you were listening. The entirety of Lost City itself is just a masterpiece. Now, obviously, you're not just supposed to use Lost City plants, but honestly, I don't think it would have been much more difficult or easier with other plants. The types of zombies that are introduced in Lost City are made to counter certain plant classes rather than specific plants. And I think that's just really cool. The Parasol zombie isn't just stopping the key, it's stopping the cabbage pult, the corn pult, the melon pult, and pretty much all other catapult plants. Relic hunters are also going directly over your walnuts. Excavators are picking up those spike rocks and blocking your pea shooters. It seems like Lost City is well prepared for the player that comes into it. And I have a feeling the developers had a lot of fun making this world too. Anyways, on to far future. Now, as you may guess, far future was a breeze. Well, for the most part. Using only native plants, of course, Lost City plants are now gone from the challenge. On like level 2, I get Laser Beam. And guys, Laser Beam is terrible. I'm sorry, I'm just gonna say it. I don't know where all the Laser Beam glazing is coming from. Garden Warfare 2 is the only Laser Beam that I have an exception for. Now, sure, it's infinite pierce, but it's not exactly infinite value. This guy shoots slow as shit. Like, if you don't place him down in time, he's not killing a conehead. And when he's your only offensive plant and costs 200 suns, it's horrible. Through much of the early levels, I was just trying to figure out where and when to place the laser beams. Because I try to get an early sun economy since laser beam's expensive as fuck, but if you place him too late, then he'll take forever to kill literally anything. His DPS is in a garbage bin. And this gets painfully obvious when we're introduced to the conehead mechs. With these, though, we have Citron. Citron is even more expensive, and that makes Laser Beam even worse. An important part of this challenge for me is setting up an early game sun economy, and it is hard. but especially in far future. If you don't know, zombies usually come in when they're damaged. The more zombies are damaged, the more zombies that will show up. It's how the level progression works. And laser beams are terrible against mechs. So I have to make a sun economy that can afford a defense like Citron and Laser Beam, which is effectively 550 suns to have one per row, or more than 2,500 to have a full column of them. During this financial crisis, I decided to partake in capitalism myself. I went to Dairy Queen, and I set up a little break screen. I returned with deliciousness intact, and still had time to finish the stream. One of the harder levels was definitely Day 8, which is almost halfway through the already very short world. I spent a while just trying to put the tiles down correctly, that way I can ult spam when the time is right. Ult as in using the plant foods. Citron ult is ridiculous, but it also stops when it collides with a mech. So figuring out where to place the power tiles in the Citrons was mostly the level in its entirety, and it took a surprising amount of attempts. I got it under cover though. I was also working with Blover and Ian Peach by day 10. Now, this might be a hot take, but Far Future isn't as correct as I remember it to be. In fact, it kind of feels a little bit disappointing. I was pretty hyped for Far Future. Blover kind of shut down all the mechs and their jets, along with Ian Peach. So the main thing with this world was just the raw power. And honestly, Citron was pretty fun, as well as the power tiles. I don't know, maybe it's just the nature of the challenge, but I feel like Far Future isn't built for itself. Now, it's nothing like Dark Ages, which I think has even less levels. And I still love Far Future. I just feel like it could be a little bit more enriched. Anyways, day 11 was just laser beam spam because it was a planar defense. Day 13 was also where we had Gargs on regular levels, but honestly, the Gargs, they'd fire laser beams, and sometimes they just straight up miss, which I always found funny as a kid, but they also take twice the amount of time to crush something, so they're really just non-threatening. Then we get magnifying glass. The video is pretty much over. Or so I thought. No, the video is pretty much over. No, I try to be funny with it, but it is. Magnifying grass is so fucking stupid, especially when you can abuse the sun economy with the power tiles in this world. If this world wasn't a breeze enough, magnifying grass made it a breeze. It's like the exact opposite of Lost City, where everything introduced in Far Future is made to hard counter all the mechs and new things introduced. And just like the zombies in Lost City, it is so blatantly obvious that the plants only have one job in this world against a single zombie. Though I will give PopCap the olive branch. Far Future was their fourth world, and while we're fighting zombies, I've kind of given a lot of opinions on Far Future already, but for being its fourth world, I understand why it had less than 24 levels. I feel like it was done dirty by the new progression system by putting it so high up in the ladder. I'd say Lost City is definitely infinitely more difficult than Far Future, and I think that Far Future was kind of introduced right when PopCap was getting creative with their plants anyways. It's where they were moving away from a lot of their earlier plants from the first game and actually experimenting with new ones. I think Far Future had the highest amount of unique plants between the four first worlds that were introduced, and I can appreciate that. Edgar Zomboss, however, does not. He got rolled so unbelievably hard it wasn't even funny. Now, if you think this is interesting, our next world is Dark Ages, Neon Mixtape, and Jurassic Marsh. Neon Mixtape already has me shitting myself, and I haven't even went into the world yet. For now though, thank you for watching, and check out my shorts or art content. Make sure to follow for another stream too. Subscribe. Until then, onwards, says the Baron.